So patriarchy to me are the people that rule the world and have sold you a line of bullshit and you believed it. I think women are waking up to the fact that, they aren't the weaker sex. There's actually stories about divine feminine and women that have been suppressed. But, hating, you have to move through the anger. Because this is the other thing that women were commenting. I'm just so pissed.
Welcome to Elevated Life, Real Wellness and Transformation Podcast, where we walk alongside the internally driven individual as they transform their life through wellness, movement, mindset, and personal responsibility. If that's you, you're in the right place. Let's jump in.
Jonna, would you like to start?
I'm just sitting here snuggled up to my cup of coffee today. While the coffee maker bubbles in the background because it needs to be cleaned. And I was thinking that when we move, that coffee maker needs to be thrown in the garbage. Yeah, that needs to happen. And maybe we pack because we have a French press.
Yeah.
Yeah, so remember when we were talking yesterday when we bought our luggage? Packing some of the things that we need for the first however long. Mm-hmm. Maybe we pack the French press.
Maybe.
Yeah. I'm thinking so. That's not what we're talking about today. I'm going to read a quote to you people, lovely people. And the reason why we're talking about this today is because it's a quote that we put on TikTok that had a ton of engagement, and I don't want to say went viral because I literally don't give a shit about that. But it obviously struck a chord with so many people, and I want to break it down and chat about it. So
let's do it.
Yeah, let's do it. Here's the quote. Perimenopause is wild. You start out thinking you have a hormone imbalance, but you realize your entire life has been a patriarchal conditioning scam. Oh, and bonus, you have ADHD. And nobody noticed. And I just, I read every comment and it had like 479 comments. And because I wanted to get the pulse of what, of course, it was like 99.9% women who commented. I think I had one man say, try smoking weed. That might help. And I responded with, that's not true because everyone's different and some people get anxiety or have a histamine reaction. Go ahead.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but I think your response right there is super fascinating and ties into the overall theme of what we're talking about. And I don't even think you realize you did it. And I didn't realize you did it last time we talked about this, but it just hit me just now. Because he said, try smoking weed. And you said, that's not true. It impacts everyone different. Which means it could help some people.
Sure.
So it is true. Potentially.
Yeah.
But we come at things through our own lens of...
Yeah.
No, that's not accurate because it might have a negative impact on some people because it does cause anxiety. I mean, everything you're saying is true.
Right.
I'm not disputing any of it, but just the idea of really having to be careful of, because we both said that, when we read that comment, but be careful of your internal thought processes and experiences really clouding what you say, because we instantly dismissed him because it's not accurate for some people.
Well, I don't know if I completely dismissed him, but yes, I ultimately I did, because also I'm not going to promote any kind of disassociation, but everyone's different, right? Because I definitely feel like that, for me and for people that I know, it's a very good way to disassociate.
Sure.
And I'm not pro that. Me personally, I like being completely present, and sober-minded, except for jacked up on coffee. That's pretty much my drug of choice. But anyway,
sorry to
that's
derail
fine.
you, but
I just want to jump into this because obviously there are a ton of women who are feeling this way. And a lot of the comments were like, are you reading my brain? Are you reading my journal? Oh my goodness, I'm not the only one. Like, this is a thing. And I understand, in the grand scheme of viral content, which this was not that, there was only 500 comments. But even if there's 500 women making a comment, then there's a whole host of women who are also feeling this way. So I kind of want to talk about perimenopause a little bit, the waking up to the patriarchy and ADHD. So do you want to say something about that, sir?
I'm curious to see where this goes.
Yeah.
That's what I'll say right now.
Do you have your boxing gloves over there? Anyway, I think that let's just start with the perimenopause because this has been in, everything wellness for the last few years. And I believe that women are going through this at a younger age. And I question all of the symptoms are being lumped into, oh, you're perimenopause, even though you're 35. I feel like that's odd. We didn't have this, 35 wasn't a number that you were starting menopause. And where did this premenopause come in? And we've talked about this briefly and in the past. So I want to talk about that, but I want you to speak to it as well. I don't want to sit here and just be yapping away.
I'm going to.
Okay, so speak to it.
I think it's a fascinating concept that now there's something that is before something else. Because aren't you technically premenopause until your menopause?
Yeah,
So you're
I would think
premenopause at 14.
Yeah, that's a good.
It's just like a lump, a catch-all.
Yeah.
Which is, and I mean, I'm being kind of silly and stupid about it, because I understand what.
Yeah, definitely not laughing at people who are perimenopause.
No, but what I'm being silly at the notion of just being able to lump everything into some, obviously it's not a disease, but that same kind of thing.
A diagnosis.
Yeah, like you see all the pharmaceutical ads, do you have these 29,000 symptoms that are of everything? Oh,
yeah.
You probably have this and this and this and this.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so it's just like okay, you're going through these things, and I'm not discounting the things.
Yeah.
But it's an easy catch-all to say, oh, yeah, you're just perimenopause.
I agree. And you know what else gets that is fibromyalgia. Like, okay, women who have all these aches and pains, they can't move, they're debilitated, and then they make up a new thing called fibromyalgia, and you have that. Now, I am 49. I'm not discrediting menopause or perimenopause, but here are some factors as to why I think it's so insane, right? Meaning like these symptoms are real and they are not made up at all. But why are we at the point where it's like women are glitching fucking hard? Why? So I'm going to give my opinion on that. And number one would be lack of body movement and not fueling your body in a way that it needs to be fueled. It's overtoxified, right? Number two, complete dysregulation of the central nervous system. Women are tapped out because they decided to, I'm a woman, hear me roar, and they've gone full into the workforce. They've been sitting all day. They've been doing all those things. These are just the, things that I've been thinking of because over the last year, as I've been thinking about menopause, How come our ancestors or generations past maybe they didn't start menopause or do the peri part of it at 35? How come it was an easier, and I don't know this for sure, but seemingly the transition wasn't as insane, right? How come? And I believe that to be that they were closer with nature, they had more community, they were maybe walking in their feminine more. I'm not sure. I'm just tossing things, at the wall.
I agree. I would say when, because we've had a lot of conversations about this.
Yeah.
And one thing that I thought of when we were thinking about this kind of thing, because the word perimenopause maybe has been around. I hadn't heard of it until like 18 months ago.
Yeah.
And it's not like I live in that world or have lived in that world, but I knew about menopause my entire adult life.
Right.
If you're a adult human, you probably understand that concept.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden this thing is new. So that's interesting to me. And it kind of gets back to what I was saying with people need diagnoses. And like, I feel fucking weird. Oh, it's perimenopause. Well,
Yeah.
I'm 26. Yeah, it happens different for everybody.
Right.
Instead of, let's actually figure out what's going on. But one thing and when John and I were having this conversation, I pointed out, if you look at the other side, so to speak, of, this journey for a woman, oh my gosh, what happened? Puberty.
Yeah.
Just totally blank. Puberty is happening earlier and earlier and earlier for,
Yeah.
I would say for boys and girls, but we're talking about girls, and so, I don't think it's coincidental that all of a sudden all this weird stuff is happening earlier at that phase of women's lives.
Yeah.
Because it's also happening earlier at the early phase of women's lives. I tend to think, beyond all the things that you're talking about, if you listen to the podcast, Jonna tends to be a little more thinking broadly, thinking, like higher level spiritually, that kind of thing. I tend to think a little more baseline logically, and I think it's a combination of both.
Yeah.
And that my version of that is our food.
Yeah.
It just pure, our food and you hear about toxins from plastics, that kind of thing. I think all that stuff kind of gets lumped together because that's been a major shift. Even if we talk about not going back to, way ancestors, hundreds or thousands of years ago, but go back to your grandma.
Right.
We can track this stuff real time in our lifetimes, the changes that have happened to our food supply, our, what we consume,
Water supply,
water, right.
Everything.
Everything.
Just our lifestyle too. I just think that, and I've talked about this in the past, everyone's pushing bioidentical hormone replacement. And I've even, said, hey, if that's what, mind you, I'm a personal trainer. Okay. These are just my thoughts and my feelings currently. I am not someone who, really dies on any hill except for eat whole foods and move your body. Right. And deal with your childhood trauma. Like those are the hills I'm going to die on. But anything else is fluid because I like to learn, right? So bioidentical hormone replacement gets pushed. Oh, yes, it was demonized in the 80s. And now all of a sudden, the studies were flawed and, do that. And if that's what you want to do, I am so your body, your choice. Like that's another hill I would die on. You do you. But as I have observed some of my clients, these things aren't helping either. And so, they're doing the patch or and this isn't everyone. Sometimes it's helping people. And they're not noticing any kind of difference in how they're feeling. And so, as we just pick apart the perimenopause part of this quote, I think that the dysregulation of women's central nervous system plays a huge role. I think the lack of connection, which we just listened to a podcast yesterday about how they are now seeing that when women feel connected with other women, their estrogen levels rise, which I find fascinating because so many of us don't have a tribe. We are, our tribe is like online. Everything is on a screen. We're sitting, we're feeling disconnection. And so again, I want to circle back to what did the women do before us that weren't starting menopause or having all this craziness happen, at 30, basically. And that's really what I want you women to consider. Like, if you're not going within, if you're not dealing with the things, if you're not prioritizing your health mentally, physically, emotionally, if you're not having those connections, I believe that this is, it's going to be rough for you because that's where we're at in the timeline of the world. Mm-hmm. What say you about that? And then we can move on to the patriarchy part.
Well, I'm going to move on to the patriarchy part right now.
All right.
Because it's clearly all intertwined. With a question.
Oh, goody.
Why do you think women's central nervous systems are so dysregulated now?
I think it's because we thought that, a lot of different reasons, honestly. But I think that with the toxic femininity, it pushed us more into our masculine. And we are now reaping what we have sown in that, partially. Number two, Gen X is, Gen X and late millennials now are the ones going through what is called perimenopause. We were told as women or children, to shut up and not feel, and if you go to therapy, you're weak, all the things that we've talked about in the podcast previously. And we are realizing that didn't work for us. We also, again, with toxic femininity, we decided that we could have a family, work a full-time job, be the CEO of the household, and we could do that, and yay. And turns out we're burnt out. We're absolutely burnt out from that. And we haven't, as women, prioritized ourselves, and because that's been coined as being selfish. So even like taking time to go for a walk, it's like, no, I can't because, I've got this and that to do. I believe that that's why we're dysregulated. And I think we're dysregulated as a population, and that word gets, tossed around everywhere. Like perimenopause and regulating your central nervous system are like hot topics right now. Mm-hmm. That wasn't even a thing, generations ago, because it just wasn't. So now I feel like the pendulum is way over here, and slowly but surely it's going to find equilibrium. That's going to take time.
It's just fascinating to me that your answer didn't include the patriarchy at all. But that quote was, blamed the patriarchy for everything that, you didn't talk about there. And I tend to agree with what you're saying. It was interesting. You know, one of the things that came up as we were talking about this a bunch.
Hey friends, if you're getting something out of this, connect with us on our social media platforms. We're at CJ Elevated Life _ on Instagram and TikTok, and CJ Elevated Life on Facebook and X. We're answering DMs, sharing daily content, and building community with people ready for real transformation. For now, hit subscribe wherever you're listening, Apple, Spotify, YouTube. We drop 2 new episodes every week. And if this episode resonates, share it. That's how we reach more people who are ready for change. You can also find everything at cjellevatedlife.com. All right, let's keep going.
Another thing that used to be, you know, we do a lot of talking about it used to be, and then it is now. It used to be the concept of a midlife crisis was pretty much exclusively reserved for men.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, there'd be an occasional thing, but if you said this person is having a midlife crisis, it would almost exclusively be understood. Oh, it's a dude.
Yeah.
You know, a dude in his 40s that is maybe getting a divorce and buying a Corvette and, you know, getting an earring, whatever. I shouldn't say dumb shit, because whatever, you know, if that's what you want to do. But it was, you know, it was a male thing.
Right.
And now all of a sudden women are having midlife crises and they're calling it perimenopause.
Sure. And I think, go ahead. You were going to finish a thought.
No, go ahead.
No, you.
Well,
Tag, you're it, buddy. I mean, here's the problem that I have right currently, and I've had to work through this massively. You can attest to this. The blame game is fucking old. Mm-hmm. I'm so sick of blaming. So patriarchy to me are the people that rule the world and have sold you a line of bullshit and you believed it. And each one of us have to take responsibility for this. I think women are waking up to the fact that, you know, they aren't the weaker sex. They, in religion, there's actually stories about divine feminine and women that have been suppressed. But, you know, you have to move through the anger. Because this is the other thing that women were commenting. I'm just so pissed, right? And I get it. I mean, those of you who follow me on social media, I took my son's zombie bat and flung it around. You have to move through the anger. You cannot live in it. And we're so used to blaming everyone else. There's an awakening that's happening right now. This is not like a shocking thing. There's a rise of the divine feminine coming out, but the phases of that are going to include anger. And I think that women, we need to not get stuck in the anger and not get stuck in blaming, pointing the finger, doing all of that, because I bought the lie. I bought the lie in the religious industrial complex. I bought the lie in, you know, any system, right? But now I'm waking up to it and I'm not going to live in the anger of it. It has to move through you. You can't shove it into your big toe, but spewing out anger towards, you know, the patriarchy is just fueling anger. So trying to move through it. We've all been sold a lie. Okay, we've been sold a lie that our food is safe, that you can sit on a computer all day and not be, you know, unhealthy, that, you know, because you're a woman, you're less than, because you're a man, you're, you know, an egotistical asshole, whatever that looks like. It's this whole system is a lie and people are waking up to it. And I think what's unique with the women approaching perimenopause or menopause, there's this huge awakening happening at the exact same time that your body is changing biologically, and it's causing more glitching out, more rage, more symptoms. All of those things are happening simultaneously that we didn't have a generation ago. A generation ago, most people didn't know that our government was, eating babies, right? They didn't know that. They didn't know that their vote didn't count. They didn't know that Mary Magdalene was the divine feminine counterpart to Yeshua, and she has a whole story, and women are just as amazing as men, right? We didn't know. I mean, the vast majority of people didn't know that. So that's happening on top of the biological change. That's a lot to handle. It just is. But staying stuck in it, in the anger, is doing nothing for you. So I'm really trying to inspire women to move through that. There has to be forgiveness for yourself and for others for you to move through this. Go ahead. You're moving around like I have some stuff to say.
No, just shifting my body weight.
Okay.
It's what's the anger? What's the anger directed at?
Usually it's directed at men because that's the only thing that they can see that they can have,
So this is fascinating to me because we talk a lot about healing and, all those things. And so much of it is understanding where anger comes from, understanding forgiveness, where forgiveness comes from and what it's directed at. But this seems to live outside of that because it's just it feels like a cop-out to me.
to blame him.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because from my experience, and even this, I might go on a little diatribe here because it kind of fucking pisses me off because we're so as a society now, we're so everybody has their own lived experience and everybody should have opinions on this, and everybody gets to live their truth. Except if it challenges me, then shut the fuck up.
Right.
Because you have a penis, you can never talk about women ever. But I'm the oppressed woman, so I get to say all these negative things that men do. And why? And, go on diatribes for hours about the patriarchy when, how about fucking look inward?
I agree.
Because I'm sorry, women, you wanted to be men, and now you're fucking living with how hard it is to be a dude. There's a reason for all of history up through 5 minutes ago, the only people that had midlife crises were men. Because we've lived with the stress of all the other things, right? All the other being out and needing to, all the toxic femininity components that you're talking about, right? That, women can be CEOs, and not that they can't.
No, they can.
But it brings a whole different level of stress that is just, it's so dismissed. And now it's like the chickens are coming home to roost a little bit. And the last thing people want to do is blame the people that made the fucking decisions.
Right.
Women are the ones that chose to go into the workforce.
Yep.
Women are the ones that said, I don't need a fucking man to do anything. I can do everything on my own.
Yeah.
And then now it's a realization of, oh, maybe not.
Right.
That doesn't take away from what a woman can do. But we are all this talk about fucking equality. It's equality, except I can do everything. I don't need you for anything. But now it's like, fuck, this is hard. Now I'm going to blame you.
Right.
And it's very frustrating to just to live in this world of we have to look inward, we have to have personal accountability and responsibility, and that's where the healing starts. But man, fuck men.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I can't combat that because, well, first of all, yes, that's true. Yeah. I mean, it is. And I think right now we're in that flux of, we're in mid-anger, right? Women are. And they're just pointing fingers. They are. And they want men to admit that, you know, they're in the patriarchy and blah, blah, blah. But all, you know, men and women are victims of the patriarchy.
And men and women are perpetrators.
Totally.
I think that's what gets lost in it.
Yeah. And here's the deal. Everyone needs to take personal responsibility and quit pointing the fucking finger. And I have been saying this now for months. It is time to stop looking at people by their skin color, by their sexual orientation, by their fucking gender, and look at souls and what they're contributing. Like, that's just where we're at. Now, we're in a phase where everyone's working through this anger, right? They're working through the fact that, you know, we live in the system that we live in. And I find it fascinating because, you know, I've been talking about this stuff, not on a podcast, for years, decades, right? And now we're in the midst of this shift. And I've had to shift too because I've been fucking angry at men, angry mostly at the religious system, to be honest with you. That's where the most of my anger comes from because I was told to be submissive and nice and not cause a ruckus and blah, blah, blah. And then, you know, the veil came off my eyes and I started doing a shit ton of research and I'm realizing, oh my gosh, right? So that's where the most of my anger comes from. You have to work out your anger on your own, right? And then you have to move through it. We can't sit in this anger and constantly point fingers. It's the same thing as blaming McDonald's for your high cholesterol when you're the one that drove through the fucking drive-through. You know, I mean, you are making the choices. So I chose to subscribe to religion. I made that choice because I didn't, you know, at a young age dive into the Gnostic texts. And so I can't be just pissed off at, you know, the lies that I believed because I didn't do the study until later on in life. So that's just taking the personal responsibility. And so moving through this is key, right? That's the key. Move through your anger. You're going to have to feel it. You're going to have to punch it out. You're going to have to dance it out. You're going to have to do whatever you need to do, women. But pointing the finger at everyone is not working. It's causing more division, more problems than, you know, than we had before. You got to work through it. So.
It's a hard place to be. And we had these conversations about lots of different things, not just this, but it's a hard place to have a realization that I subscribe to whatever. You know, we were talking about it also just with academia, and it fits. It all, you know, and the religious stuff that you were just talking about. It all is, branches of the same tree. There's a better cliche for it, but it's a very hard realization that I subscribed to something, some thought process, some way of life, some, you know, this is how I am supposed to be. And then to have the realization that this is not what I thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
And then turn that back on yourself and
Totally.
say, you know what? It's not that I fucked up.
No.
Because that mentality doesn't help you move forward
Right.
at all. You know, if you're pointing the finger at everybody else or pointing the finger back at yourself, you're going to end up in the same spot because you're still just blaming.
Yeah.
You're blaming and then you're becoming a victim. You're a victim of whoever, the patriarchy or the religious,
Industrial complex.
Yeah, or the academia,
Right.
Heads of colleges or whatever. Or you're a victim of yourself.
Right.
And that's a real thing too. So moving away from that victimhood, I think, is the most important thing. And you have to start with understanding. You have to forgive yourself forget about why. Let me take half a step back from that. It's important to understand why so you don't fall back into that same thing. But you're not getting answers from the why. The patriarchy, the religious industrial complex, they're not going to say, you know what? We're sorry. We fucked you over. Now here, let me make it up to you.
No.
That's not going to happen. And when you direct your anger and your energy at those things, that's what you're looking for, and you're never going to get it, so you're never going to move forward.
Well, and it grows. And one of the 4, however many pillars we have for elevated life is personal responsibility. And this is where it gets uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable. And, I think about, we talked about an NDE a couple of weeks ago that we watched on Soft White Underbelly on YouTube. And what was the guy's name? Vinny. And he talked about how his spirit guide showed him that he was, what's the word? I don't want to say racist. He was judgmental. Prejudice. And he was like, no, I'm not prejudiced. I came from a biracial home. And his spirit guide said, yeah, but you are prejudiced against people who are prejudiced against other races. And we've talked about this on other podcasts, think about names of people you don't like. And if you have those feelings, right? So it's the same thing. If you're hating on the patriarchy, right? If you're hating on men in general, you're still spreading hate, right? It's just a better version of hate or a excused version of hate. And I see this all the time when I see people just on that other side, like Vinny, I don't like people who don't like biracial homes. They're fucking assholes. You're still being prejudiced. It's the same thing. It's the same seed. And this is difficult to look at because I've had to move through this. I have spent a couple of months literally not liking guys at all. Clint and my kid. Everyone else, fuck off. Y'all are fuckers. And then I, watched the ND and it's funny because that part was glossed over until I've been really trying to work through the anger. And I thought, oh, this is a tool. This is a tool that I am now feeding into this hate. And I still do it with the religious industrial complex. Me coming out and being pissed off but isn't doing anything, but feeding it energetically, it feeds it. So I'm really trying to move through the anger the best that I can, right? I mean, it's not pretty. It's super messy, and you're going to have to do it if you want to get past it. If you don't want to live in this anger-infused rage women that is happening alongside all these other things with menopause, you're going to have to move through it, which means you're going to have to create space to move through it. So anyway, that's that. The other thing is,
Hey, quick pause. If this episode is hitting you and you're ready for real tools, here's what we built.
Head on over to cjelevatedlife.com, pick up the Rebuilt Method for Men or
Whoa.
the Rebuilt Method for Women, just $67 each. We also created the Parasite Detox Blueprint at $37. And this is actually the exact protocol we use ourselves.
And while you're there, sign up for the newsletter. You'll get the weekly action steps and new tools we've tested ourselves. Let's get back to the episode.
the ADHD component. I just want to touch on that. And this is just a Jonna-ism. And, you know, I'm not a doctor. I don't know stuff. I know that I have had some form of ADHD my entire life. I feel like it's a superpower, more than, you know, some terrible thing. You have to hone it in. Now, some people have it very severe, and I'm not trying to discredit them, but I also think that there are natural ways that you can support it, right? That's my thing with ADHD. What do you have to say about that?
I think it's bullshit.
Yeah.
I think it's 100% bullshit. Because how would you define ADHD?
You know, I don't know. Someone who can't focus.
But can you never focus?
No, I can focus.
On
I just
things
have a
that
different
matter
way.
to you.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it isn't the inability to focus. It's the trying to do things that don't really matter.
Right. And I'm going to say this. We know for a fact that our food supply fucks with people who have this kind of a brain, along with people on the spectrum, which I believe we're all pretty much on the spectrum, but that's a whole different thing. And that's just my own personal opinion. Of course, there's people that are legit high level spectrum, but we all are different and our minds are different. And we are affected by trauma, food, lack of movement, screen time, sunlight, you know, time in nature differently. And that causes the brain to glitch out. And I know that, you know, when I was in school, I talk about this all the time, constantly got in trouble, had a box on my desk at the back of the room all the time because I didn't want to sit in school and listen about dumb stuff. I wanted to be outside.
But that's not ADHD.
Right, but that's
being
what's
a
being
child.
that's what's being diagnosed now. But
Yeah, that's why I
obviously.
think it's bullshit.
Yeah.
I think it's an excuse. I think it's a couple things. I think it's one, a way for the pharmaceutical industry to push drugs, because everything is a way for the pharmaceutical industry to push drugs. And two, I think it's a built-in excuse for people to not do things that they don't want to do, because it still is the same. You know, anytime, and I've listened to a lot of podcasts about people talking about this kind of stuff, ADD, ADHD, you know, those types of things, which doesn't mean anything. You know, it's just podcasts, whatever. Again, I'll echo Jana's. I'm not a doctor.
No.
I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about.
and it might change tomorrow.
Except I do know my experience. And my experience with everyone who says they're ADHD is they have no problems focusing on stuff that matters to them.
Yeah.
So if it was truly a glitchy brain, if you were sitting down, you know, I can't even think of an example right now, but sitting down and doing something you love that takes focus, you wouldn't be able to do it. But you can, because now this matters to you. But if something doesn't matter to you, like, oh, now I'm thinking about a million different things, which I think is just being a human.
Well, I think partially you're kind of minimizing this. Like, I think that as humanity is waking up and we're in the midst of this great awakening, humans are supposed to do what they love. We've been born into a system that we have to do jobs we don't like, but we don't have to, right? I mean, we've been told we have to. And I think that that's where the glitchiness comes in. Like, I want to say what you were saying, when you're doing something you love, you can really focus on it. That's what I would tell people to do to, obviously help with ADHD. I want to circle back to ADHD within perimenopause really quick. I think that part of the ADHD is that you've bought into the scams that we've been talking about, and it's causing, and potentially you haven't dealt with trauma. You've been pushing things down. You haven't been eating properly. You haven't been moving your body. You haven't been doing the things that you love. And this causes a misalignment. This is a misalignment. When I read this quote, like alignment with your true authentic self. And that takes years of peeling back the onion to find. Now, as I am, I think, in the midst of menopause or perimenopause, because I still ovulate and I still have my period, but I definitely have some what they would call symptoms. I am really trying to work through all of these things so that my symptoms don't stack up to the wall. Right? Like the frozen shoulder thing that all of a sudden is now a new perimenopause thing, which I think is like, hey, bones are not working correctly. Your muscle mass is not working correctly. Same with insulin resistance. Like we're under muscled, right? There's certain things that I've been preparing for so that it wouldn't be so severe. But unfortunately, people haven't prepared for it. And I'm going to circle back again because I just got on a long diatribe. In terms of ADHD, I think dealing with yourself is going to help with that. Honestly.
Yeah, I agree.
You're just staring at me.
I wasn't sure if you were done.
I'm done.
I'm curious because you said I was minimizing it. I'm curious how I'm minimizing it.
Well, maybe not minimizing, but I just don't think it's that cut and dry, right? We know that trauma rewires the brain, right? And so, yes, I absolutely agree with the point that you made, but I think there's, nuance to everything. I do. So I don't think it's just the pharmaceutical company wants to sell you drugs, and if you focus on what you love, then you won't have ADHD.
No, that's not what I said.
Okay.
That's not what I said at all.
Okay.
I'm saying it's an excuse. It's the pharmaceutical thing. Absolutely 100%. I would die on that hill.
Yeah.
Because they're saying, oh, this 9-year-old boy can't sit for 4 hours in a classroom. He clearly has ADHD.
Right.
No, he's a child.
Sure.
The other part of it, again, I would say I would love to know, I would love for somebody that has ADHD that says, I absolutely love to read. Mm-hmm. But, I'll read and then I'll try to read and then I just get distracted with going and digging ditches and, scrubbing toilets. And now all of a sudden, and maybe there are people out there, but I think generally speaking, and okay, so maybe I was a little too declarative. Generally speaking, the vast majority of the time, it is, again, an excuse, a diagnosis for, I start cleaning the kitchen and then, I start vacuuming and then I start putting stuff away and then I start folding the clothes and then I start, or I'm out in the shop and I'm working on this project and then I start working on this project over here and then I start working on this project over here. I don't think that, and maybe you want to call it ADHD, but it's not like a detrimental thing. I think it's easy to just say, oh, I have this, and now I'm not going to lock in and get something done that I need to get done.
Right.
And
Yeah.
that's the problem that I have with it.
Well, I think people have been told that hopping from cleaning the kitchen to wiping down the toilet to emptying the garbage, they've been told that that's ADHD.
Yes.
And really, I've been doing that forever. And before ADHD was even a thing.
Right. And so I guess that's
Yeah.
what I'm trying to say. That's not something wrong with you.
Right. Doctors saying that this is wrong human patterning.
Yeah.
And it's just not. It's just, yeah,
No,
I
those
agree.
are things that you're just not that interested in doing. And then you are kind of doing this,
Yeah.
and then you're kind of doing that, and then you're kind of doing that because you're not so locked in because you love what you're doing. And we can't always love what we're doing because
No.
there's other shit that has to get done. But not being just as singularly focused on those things doesn't mean you have a fucking sickness.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean you have a disease or a mental issue.
Yeah.
I think that's the frustrating part.
Sure, because who created the model of perfection thinking, perfection, whatever, right? Like, oh, if you're not cleaning the bathroom from start to finish in 1 hour,
Yeah.
then
Then you're-
all of a sudden something's fucking wrong with you.
Yes.
Yeah,
Because we get pushed so much into something is wrong with you.
Yeah.
Now you need a fix.
Yes.
Whether the fix is drugs or point the finger and say how all these other people have fucked me up all this time.
or a guru.
Or, right.
Yeah.
You know, you don't need a fix
Yeah.
if you move from one thing to the next.
Yeah. So, okay,
That's what I'm trying to say.
yeah, and I agree with that. So let's bring this back
Mm-hmm.
to the end. Ladies that are going through this, because this is real.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a real awakening that's happening within the population on top of the biological change within Gen X and early or late millennial women. You got to move through it. You don't get stuck. Don't get stuck in the anger. Don't get stuck in the self-diagnosing. Don't get stuck in the I'm broken. Okay? Move in a direction to support your body, right? Nourish your soul. Nourish your meat suit in a way that is healthy. Move your body. Forgive. I know all these things are fucking hard, and I'm not going to tell you how to do it because it's different for everyone. But allow yourself to be angry. Allow it, right? If you got to go outside and scream or grab the zombie bat and swing it around, you have to have it. The energy has to move out of your body. And then you have to say, how am I going to move forward from this point? Am I going to hate the patriarchy and feed into the hate and talk about how men fucking suck forever? Or am I going to come to a logical conclusion of we have all been sold a really big shit bag? Such a big shit bag. Like, everything's a fucking lie. Everything's a lie, right? So how do we move through that? How do we want to live on this planet for the rest of our time here, right? That's really it. And here's the deal. I'm not giving anyone the answers because number one, I don't have them. I only have what is working for me currently, and everyone's different. And the name of this podcast is fucking personal responsibility, right? That's one of the pillars. I already said that earlier. But you are going to have to take some personal responsibility if you're going to get out of this shit show sane.
That's the answer.
That it's just the facts, because people are going batshit crazy. It's not just women in perimenopause. They're going batshit crazy. You're going to have to take some personal responsibility. You're going to have to fall back in love with yourself and the things that you loved to do as a child. You're going to have to live closer with nature, do what our ancestors did, form community of people that you love that are like-minded. That's what you're going to have to do. That's what I'm trying to do. That's the only thing I know how to do. And, you know, that's basically, that's it. And if I'm glitching out right? I can't imagine the people who have not prioritized at least any of the things that we've talked about are massively glitching out. And I have so much compassion for that. But, you know, this really circles back to the crevice. What was that vision that I had?
Yeah, what did we call it?
The cavern, the crevice, the big break.
Chasm.
Chasm. Yeah. Like, you either do the things and get shit done internally and externally and move through these emotions, or, you know, it's going to be a rough road. So anyway, that is it. Thank you for listening. I know we went on so many tangents, and I hope it was helpful. You know, we didn't really give any kind of solutions.
Yeah, we did. Personal responsibility.
Yeah. Go inward,
Yeah.
eat whole foods, exercise, spend time in meditation and nature, and surround yourself with people who are fucking lovely. There you go. I love you guys. Have a good day.
All right, we'll talk to you soon.